straight. She thinks many, if not all of them, are racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, or just plain dumb. On the election fallout, she sounds like any garden variety MSNBC pundit. She just can't quit talking about the Capitol riot. She calls it the insurrection. Republicans want to move on, but Cheney refuses to. She's a woman obsessed.
What happened on January 6th is unprecedented in our history. And I think that it's very important that the commission be able to focus on that. I think it's very important that the January 6th commission focus on what happened on January 6th and what led to that attack.
Now, never mind that House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell had already said that any congressional inquiry should be broadly focused on all political violence, including acts, by the way, of violence by Antifa and other similar groups. But of course, bucking her party and scratching at the scab of January 6th means that Cheney is the Republican hero du jour for some of the most irrelevant media voices in America.
Liz Cheney is living in reality, and the story here isn't about her integrity. It isn't about her adherence to the facts. It's about the decline of one of the two governing parties.
She called BS on Donald Trump again today as he tries to repitch the big lie.
She is not backing down. In fact, she's tripling down.
She's being penalized, as you say, merely for speaking the truth.
Now, the same people who regurgitated the phony Russian collusion narrative for years, they're suddenly the arbiters of the truth? Now, that is really funny. Now, they love Liz because she echoes their big lie language in her tedious tweets. She's not only, by the way, condemning Trump, but many Republican voters who still suspect some fraud. So how exactly is any of this advancing the GOP's prospects for taking the House in 2022? Now, as the Angle told you last night, Democrats are getting very nervous about the midterms, and for good reason. But at least they have Cheney to do their work for them. Rather than focusing on the trillions in spending and taxes that Biden plans to ram through Congress, she spends her time urging her colleagues to make clear that they're not the party of white supremacy. No one is better at adopting leftist slanders of GOP voters and amplifying them. Of course, that's music to the ears of all the Bush-Cheney Republicans who couldn't win, but now claim to have discovered the secrets to election success.
Liz Cheney is standing on principle. Our path to a majority for Republicans is to have people who stand on their own 2 feet and state their views like Liz Cheney is doing.
There are people who are just simply not going to call themselves Republicans if we don't move past these conspiracy theories.
Liz Cheney does have a strong group of ardent supporters in the House Republican Conference who maybe not out loud, but quietly encourage her to continue speaking the truth.
Again, the truth is talking about the truth. The truth is Cheney and all these also-rans are just plain bitter at this point. It's a classic case of sour grapes. Trump's victory in 2016 was a total repudiation of the Bush-Cheney era. He wasn't afraid to say out loud that the old establishment GOP had failed us on China, failed us on border enforcement, and failed us by waging war in Iraq.
Our nation was going badly in the wrong direction for a long period of time. We have $7 trillion invested in the Middle East. Other than death and destruction, what do we have? I believe it was the worst decision in the history of our country.
Cheney believes that those of us who changed our thinking on the Iraq War, I was one of them, that we aren't just wrong, we're now unpatriotic. And she takes Trump's harsh assessment of her father's views on military interventionism very personally. But she couldn't cast an impeachment vote on that, so she had to wait for January 6th. Along with 9 other House Republicans, Liz Cheney and every Democrat voted to impeach Trump for his supposed role in inciting the mob that entered the Capitol. But the truth is, she always thought Trump was beneath the dignity of the White House. Perhaps she thought that she was helping to write Trump's political obit, but in reality, she was writing her own. A Cheney-like candidate ran in that Texas special election last weekend, and guess what he pulled in? A whopping 3% of the vote. The voters in that special election were very clear on the agenda they support. It's called America First. You might have heard of it. Yet Ms. Cheney refuses to accept the cold reality that's staring her right in the face. The party has just moved on. They're just not into you. It's focused on our great red state governors and stopping the Biden agenda, not on January 6th. Trump critics like her find solace in think tanks whose sole achievement is shaking down donors, hosting black tie dinners, and handing out awards to their friends. At AEI's annual retreat, she was back on her broken record of Trump as a threat to democracy. If she only spent her time and a little energy talking about the current threat to our democracy, the hard left that wants to nationalize everything from local policing to state voting rules to public school curricula courtesy of BLM. But taking those positions wouldn't get her the attention she so desperately craves, or invitations to dine with the elites who love the good old days of the early 2000s. Ms. Cheney should have learned that regime change isn't easy. And if you want to come at Donald Trump, you better come at him with stronger, more sober reinforcements.
I'm a conservative Republican, all right? So is Liz Cheney. We're just not crazy. And, when you people in the media want to talk about these people being on the right, they're in the crazy car, all right? It's got nothing to do with being conservative.
The most laughable thing is when both Boehner and Cheney try to cloak themselves in the mantle of Reagan conservatism.
We have to work towards acting in a way that's worthy of being the party of Lincoln and being the party of Reagan. Those are the sort of aspirational set of policy ideals and agenda that we have to present to the voters.
Oh, please. Just imagine Reagan trying to help the Chamber of Commerce move jobs over to China. Or imagine Reagan denouncing the GOP base or pandering to the mainstream press. And when did Reagan, for whom I worked, support keeping troops in the Middle East forever? By the way, her dad was Gerald Ford's chief of staff, so the Cheney family opposed Reagan in 1976. The dinosaurs didn't know when their extinction was at hand, and neither do these people. But it's high time that House leadership right its ship and scrape off the barnacle of the Bush-Cheney era and do it once and for all. Here's a novel concept. Actually appoint someone to leadership who likes Republican voters. And that's the end.